Hello, everybody. We are live. I'm Jeff with eBay Addicts, and I got a brand new guest for you guys today. I'm excited to have Justin on today, Coach Commerce. How are you doing today, bro?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff, for having me on your show.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Go ahead and introduce yourself real quick. Tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and tell them what it is that you do.
Sure. Hey guys, my name is Justin, and I go by Coach Commerce on both YouTube and Instagram. And I make a living as a full-time eBay reseller, meaning that I try to find things for cheap and I flip them for profit on eBay. It didn't start off that way. I, have a degree in elementary school education and taught elementary, school for about 10 years. But just this past May, got to a place financially where I was comfortable enough to leave my job teaching and now go at eBay full time. So I'm loving what I'm doing and I'm enjoying my life as an eBay reseller and so happy to be on your show.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on, man. Yeah, so Justin lives in Orlando, and you're a full-time reseller, and so you have a wife and you have three kids, and so first I want to tell people kind of how we kind of met. Is actually Justin called in one day to the Dave Ramsey show, and believe it or not, I was one of the people listening to the show that day that he called in. So
That's awesome.
it's really weird. So Justin was in Orlando. He was a high school PE teacher, and he's been a school teacher full time, and he was kind of calling in the show because he was like, hey, I'm on the fence about ready to leave my job to become a full-time reseller. So and it's oddly enough, this was maybe 8-9 months ago. So oddly
Right.
enough, I checked my Instagram, and I'm scrolling through Instagram one day, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's the same guy. I was already following your page on Instagram. And I was like, that's the same guy that I heard on the Dave Ramsey show. Because I was scrolling through it. I was like, look, there's the link right there. So it's just fate what happened that we
Mhm.
happened to run into each other later on, which I'm sure we run into each other sooner or later because I'm in Tampa and you're in Orlando. So tell us a
That's
little bit
awesome.
about what that was like for you, being on the Dave Ramsey show, man.
Yeah, so I'm me and my wife. We're both huge Dave Ramsey fans, and we're the biggest fans of his because we've kind of worked his program and followed it. And it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not a miracle fix to your personal finances, but he does have a really great system to where if you follow it over time, you'll be doing a lot better off than you were in the past financially. My wife and I, we got married 10 years ago, and when we got married, we were what Dave Ramsey considers normal. We had a lot of consumer debt. And when I started off selling on eBay, I quickly found out that it'd be a great second income stream to where I could use that money that I was making on eBay on the side, apart from my regular job teaching, and apply that toward knocking out debt, and then later, saving and investing back into my business and back into our personal finances. So like you were saying, Jeff, I called Dave Ramsey's show actually last January, 6 months before or 5 months before I turned in my resignation letter at work. Because I, was kind of at a rock and a hard place then. I had two jobs, full-time jobs, what I considered with eBay and working, as a school teacher. I'd work all day and then come home and work all night until I passed out in bed. And I was kind of getting to the point where it was getting hard balancing, the work-life balance. And I felt pretty guilty. Here I am working two jobs that I love, like really love. And most, people in life have a hard time even finding one that they love. So I called him because, like I said, I've listened to his radio show for many, many years and have never really ever heard him give out any unsound financial advice. And like we were talking earlier before the show, being married and having three kids that are under the age of 8 that are dependent on me, even though, the finances made sense, it still was kind of unsettling and nerve wracking because I knew if, it didn't work out that, I have three mouths to feed that are depending on me, that can't provide for themselves. So even though the financials made sense, I called into the show, just wanting to get the peace of mind, knowing that, where I felt that God was leading me in my life, that was where, I needed to be heading, with my career as well. So, when I called the show, Dave was awesome and amazing and more or less told me, if that's your passion, that's your dream, and all the financials make sense, to go for it. So, 5 months later in May, that's what I did and never really have looked back since. I've substituted a couple of times just for fun to help out a couple teachers and they needed help this year. But, I don't foresee myself in the immediate future going back to teaching because eBay really is my passion and online reselling really is what I love to do.
Yeah. So a couple things I want to touch on is before you became a full time reseller, Justin was a high school PE teacher, and you did that for how many years? 10, 11 years, right?
Right. I actually started off teaching elementary school with first and second grade. And then about 3 years in, I took a test that they have in Florida called the subject area exam that certified me to teach physical education, or PE. And once I did that, I became your average PE coach. I
Right.
was teaching kids all day, sports and games. And
Yeah.
I think if I can tie that back into my, selling online, that's I think what it really helped me with, putting more energy and effort into selling on eBay, because as a classroom teacher, when you come home, your job never ends. You're constantly grading papers, you're dealing with communicating with parents. Teachers have a lot that they do even when they're off the clock. But being a PE coach, when the day was over, I could come home and I had the rest of my evening. So that really kind of, helped me in a sense to continue to build up my business with eBay.
Right. Well, I just wanted to highlight a couple things, is that when Justin called into the show and he says, "Hey, I want to quit my job," he wasn't doing it irresponsibly. He had already worked to maybe pay his student loan debt off. He paid his car off. If you had any credit card bills, all your consumer debt was paid off, and you even worked and got your house paid off, which was like a $300,000 house. So it wasn't like that he was just saying, "Oh, well, I'm tired of working. I want to willy-nilly just put my 2 weeks notice in and quit." He had been doing this for 10, 11 years before you got to that point. And on the side, you were also growing you're scaling your business over a period of time. So if you don't mind telling our audience, I don't mean to put you on the spot,
Yeah.
but if you don't mind telling our audience, what was your salary as a school teacher when you left? And how much money were you making reselling on the side? Do you mind telling our audience a little bit
I
about
don't mind
that?
at all. No, I mean, I made it public to the entire country, back last January when I called in. I never dreamed that I would actually meet somebody in person that heard that call. It's amazing that you have. But when I started selling 10 years ago, when my wife and I got married, moved in together, and we had all this extra stuff, we got pregnant right away. And my youngest son was on the way, and we tried to, figure out a way to get rid of the things we didn't need anymore. And that's what led me to eBay, and started selling. And over time, this definitely wasn't a way that I woke up one day and boom, I've got all this money in my bank account, I can pay off all my debt and then pay off our house. It wasn't immediate. I'm not one of those guys on YouTube that's going to teach you how to get rich quick by selling online. People that are selling courses, I'm actually a little hesitant to push people toward that, because I taught myself how to do everything on eBay. I'm not saying that's not the route everybody should take, but it definitely is possible. But where I was going with that, I'm very fiscally conservative, and my wife is too. And we don't really like to take risk. So with my eBay business, it wasn't something that, I'm like, oh, I see some guy on YouTube making all this money, and then I'm just going to try to see if I can do it, quit my job, and everything's going to work out okay. It was quite the opposite, 10 years of kind of gradually getting into a position to where we felt comfortable enough to do that. So when I started off teaching, here in Florida, back 10 years ago, teachers right out of college were making $34,000, I think. And
Right.
and where I live in Volusia County, it's kind of a little bit north of Orlando. I think teachers in Orlando may make a little bit more, but it's not much more than that. And in my 10 years of teaching, teachers don't really get crazy raises. I think when I left last May, I was making like 42,000. So, 10 years, $6,000 to $7,000 of an increase is really, it's possible to live that way. I'm so thankful. And I come from a family of educators. My dad was an elementary school teacher and a principal. My mom, still teaches first grade. So education is very important to me as, who I am as a person. But also, having certain financial goals and wanting to hit those, that's kind of where eBay came in. And, over time in selling, it got to the point where eBay replaced my income, or didn't replace it. But, after I would say probably the first year on eBay, I think I sold like $5,000, which, is great to somebody who's making only 30, that's a lot of extra income. But each year, it would get a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. I want to say probably 4 or 5 years in, I started making what I was making in my job, grossing that. I don't think I netted that, 4 or 5 years in. But then, I noticed a huge jump. So like when I teach people with eBay is thinking of it kind of like as a pipeline. You're putting up listings, putting them up, putting them up. And I list good till canceled. I don't mess with auctions. So it's kind of like, a retail store. When you walk into Walmart, you've got a store full of, thousands of items. If you walk into a boutique, there's maybe, 10 to, 100 items on the shelves. You're probably going to buy something from Walmart. And if you walk into a boutique, you might walk out empty handed. And that's kind of the approach I took with eBay, just over time, really pumping listings up on eBay. So now where I'm at in my store, I've got in my anchor store, I have, I think, a little over 15,000 active listings. So something selling all the time, every day, all day long. When I quit my job last May, or last year, obviously with COVID and everybody being on lockdown and e-commerce exploding, my gross sales, I think, were 120,000. And my net, I think that we brought in after taxes, fees, shipping, all of that stuff, I want to say was around 75 to 80. And this year we're on pace to pass those projections as well. So, like I said, I'm very blessed. It's been a lot of work. Everything that I've done for the past 10 years has culminated to where I'm at now. eBay is kind of like a bonfire effect. The more you pile on it, the bigger it burns. So that's kind of, where I'm at now. Could somebody start off in a year and make what I'm making now? It's possible. I've seen a handful of people on YouTube do it, and I'm blown away by those people. Those people are naturals at it. I wish I could say that, I was an expert when I started out, but I like many people, learn sometimes the hard way. So it's just a lot of trial and error and determination and persistence. Those are the biggest keys, in my opinion, to success on eBay or e-commerce in general.
Okay, now there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. So first of all, how has your business done since you left your full-time job? Because now you have those extra 8 hours a day where you're not in the commute, you're not fighting traffic, you're not looking for a parking spot. You don't have a 30-minute lunch break. You have those extra hours a day that you can kind of commit to reselling. Maybe while your kids are at school or something, you have the day to go out and go sourcing, list items. How has your business been since you became a full-time reseller? Is it going up, or has it been about a flat line, or how has it been?
It is. I think eBay, like I said, the way that I do things, it's very tail end. Sometimes you'll put in the work, for a month or two, and you won't see those results for another few months, maybe even a year. And like I said, I list good till canceled. So some things sell the minute I list them or within 24 hours. Some things I'll put up, like earlier today, I was selling things that no joke, listed like 5 years ago. So I like to think of it as, I'm front loading everything. And then, it's kind of like a snowball, kind of like the debt snowball we were talking about earlier. But where I was going with that is, I think this month, in the last few months, my sales have been jumping like up 20% or so, whereas they were, a few months back. So I'm definitely seeing an increase in revenue and profit. But in terms of what I think is the most invaluable thing of being a full-time reseller versus doing it, what I did, for 10 years as a side income stream or a second job, is just the freedom that it provides. Like you were saying, when my kids go to school, I'm free to go sourcing if I want to. I'm free to take a little bit longer of a lunch break, if I need to. I have a lot of flexibility with my schedule. I can do a lot more things now that I never was able to do then. And even though I'm self-employed, I definitely feel a lot less stress in my life than when I felt when I was, trying to juggle 2 jobs. So that's been, for me, the biggest blessing. Obviously, the financial side of it is a lot better. But for me, if somebody's kind of on the fence of should I quit my job versus should I keep working, eBay on the side, if you can do it financially, I would definitely encourage anybody to take that leap. At least, get maybe an emergency fund set to the side to where, if things go south, you can go back out and get a job. I mean, the economy right now, I think anybody that has a pulse can get a job somewhere. But I would definitely say go for it, and that's coming from somebody that was extremely hesitant for a long, long, long time. I mean, I probably could have quit my job 5 years before I did. And I don't say that to brag, but, hindsight's 2020. I'm thankful for where I am now.
All right. Let me give a shout out to some people here in the live stream chat. I want to give a shout out to my buddy, the ATL Flipper. He used to be a school teacher as well, so I wanted to give him a shout out. And I wanted to give a shout out to my buddy BK from the Rockies this year. It says like, share, subscribe, and comment. If you guys have questions for our guests, drop it in the chat. We are here with Justin, Coach Commerce. He's telling us a little bit about how his journey, how he went from being a high school gym teacher making $40,000 a year to now being a full-time reseller who's self-employed. He has over 15,000 items, you said, active listed on your eBay store, and he makes over $100,000 a year in sales. Is that all? That's correct, right? And
Yeah, that's
on top of that, he was able to get himself out of debt, and he paid off his mortgage, which was a $300,000 house. So I want to kind of dig into that, because if somebody is in a situation and maybe they have a lot of consumer debt, because I think that's one thing. There's three things that kind of anchors people to their regular 9-to-5 job. One is the job security, where they know they have a paycheck coming in. Two is the health insurance thing. And then the other third thing is that maybe they have so much consumer debt or consumer bills that they have to cover every month that they can't go anywhere. They're kind of stuck there because they're like, man, you don't understand. I have a wife and 3 kids. I have this $300,000 mortgage. I can't leave my job at the post office or leave being a school teacher or police officer or firefighter or whatever it is they're doing, because they have this, I don't know, I want to call it like a sword of Damocles over their head, right? Mm-hmm. So if somebody is in a similar situation that you were in, give us a little bit of advice to help them kind of work their way through this and kind of what they can do to kind of get out of debt. Like, what advice would you have to help them out?
Well, my biggest advice, if you're in debt and you've already discovered or you've already stumbled upon to the world of reselling or e-commerce, is if you have a passion for it, go ahead into it. And when I say go ahead into it, I don't necessarily mean, just quitting your job and going full time at it. What I mean is, start investing more time, in your free time into, selling online. Maybe you have every night your routine is you get home and you watch an hour of TV. There's nothing wrong with that. I love watching TV, but if you were to take that hour and put it into, listing online, it's going to be a lot more worth your time. I mean, that's kind of what I did. I had to make a choice between giving up some things that I used to enjoy doing as hobbies in the past versus doing what I thought would maybe put me in a better position, mentally, financially, spiritually, all across the board, down the road. Giving up something to get something better is kind of what I think it comes down to. So in terms of paying off debt, my biggest advice, aside from obviously we were talking earlier about, Dave Ramsey's program that he teaches, that's been huge in my life. I've never received a dime. I'm not employed by Ramsey. I don't get endorsed by him. I'm not even affiliated with him. I can just tell you from my personal experience and my personal testimony that following his program really helped me. And I'm sure there are other people, other financial, coaches or gurus out there that, if you follow the programs, you probably get results, maybe similar to what I've experienced. But for sure, eBay and reselling and e-commerce definitely was the catalyst for me that got me to where I am now. I can honestly say I don't think I would be where I am financially if I were still, if I only had my income as a teacher. I'd probably be doing okay, but not as far down the road. So I would definitely say, dive into eBay, dive into Amazon. I don't have much experience with Amazon, but eBay has always been my passion. And if you're new to, Jeff's channel, eBay Addicts, dive into his channel. His channel, I love. It's phenomenal. I just only recently discovered it, but I'm binging it because all of the people that he interviews are extremely wealthy sources of knowledge and really are awesome. He finds the best people out there to interview in terms of reselling and e-commerce in general.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, guys, the reason why I'm having Justin on is because not only was he able to quit his job as a school teacher, his wife was able to quit her job as well. So both of them were able to say, hey, we paid off our car payments, we paid off our credit cards, we paid off our student loans. You got out of your consumer debt. You were able to pay that off. You're able to not only do that, but also pay off a $300,000 house. It wasn't like it was some shack out in the woods somewhere. It was a $300,000 house, and you guys were able to climb and get out of debt. You're both able to put your notice in and quit your job, and now you get to be a full-time reseller and a full-time dad. So I just wanted you guys to kind of hear Justin's journey or testimony of how he did it, and maybe it will help you guys if you're in a similar situation. If you're maybe in a job you don't like, maybe you're in a lot of debt, maybe you're just like, man, I don't know if this is going to be for me. I don't know if I'm kind of hesitant with this reselling thing. Justin has been doing this for what, 9-10 years now, and this is his full-time gig to provide for him and his wife and his 3 kids. So let me give a shout out here to the Flippin' Sports guys in the chat. Helena is here, says, hey, can I ask questions? I want to give a shout out to the Bargain Effect. My buddy BK from the Rockies says, great job on getting your mortgage paid off. And I wanted to give a shout out to Sharon is here in the chat, and it says how to minimize risk while flipping collectibles on eBay. So what exactly is it that you sell? Because I've been wanting to get into this. what exactly are items that you sell on eBay, and where exactly do you store all your items? 15,000 items is a lot. It's not like you can put that in like the guest bedroom or in a closet somewhere. So where do you store all your items, and kind of like what is your strategy on eBay?
Sure. Do you want me? I don't want to, push aside the question that the viewer asked earlier. Do you want me to
Go
answer
ahead.
that one first?
Yeah, go
About
ahead. Yeah,
Sure. I think
how to minimize risk while flipping collectibles on eBay.
Yeah, Helena, what I would recommend to minimize risk. I'm assuming you're referring to um, trying. I don't want to read too much into your question, but what I would recommend to anybody in terms of not just selling collectibles, but selling anything, the best way to minimize risk is to just get more knowledge in the content area that you're selling. And that sounds so simple, but with the internet now and with processing things and tangibly handling things in your hands. For example, maybe if I were to go to a thrift store and I saw, an action figure I've never seen before. Before I found that action figure, I knew nothing about it. But, you can pull up your phone, on eBay is real awesome. You can look at solds and you can look at active listings to see what, comparable market value is. So you can find things real quick. What I would recommend in terms of minimizing risk is just, take the time to educate yourself and become familiar with what you're selling. And that kind of can tie into the question you were asking too, Jeff, about what I sell. I started off on eBay selling just my personal items. I had a garage sale with my wife that kind of flopped. Was pretty bummed out. We only sold like $100, $200 an entire weekend. And the amount of work we put in did not match that. And turned to eBay, and everything we couldn't get rid of at the garage sale, ended up selling for a few thousand on eBay over a period of a few months. And that's kind of what lit the fire and how I got started on eBay. And when I started out, I was only selling stuff that I had. But over time, I've gone now to looking at I grew from that to trying to figure out how to get more things, right? So I started going into flipping. You might have heard that before, but that's basically going to any store or any resale avenue to where you can buy things, that maybe people have underpriced or undervalued, and then sell them for more on eBay. So I go to a lot of places like thrift stores, estate sales, auctions, flea markets, really, you name it. There are no rules with reselling, right? Especially on eBay. If you see something that's cheap, pick it up and try to sell it for more. I my main aim at 15,000 items, and right now I'm actually working all of that out of my garage, which may not seem possible, but when I'm sourcing things, when I'm looking for things to buy, I really try to, aim towards things that are small to ship. And the reason for that is twofold. It's easier to store. You can store a lot more of it, and it's a lot cheaper to ship, right? So, all of my inventory, I use a SKU system, and that's basically just a tub system. I buy Rubbermaid tubs. I label them, and then, I put it in there after I've listed it on eBay. I'm sure a lot of resellers are already familiar with how this works. And basically I just wait for it to sell. Whenever it sells, I pull it and, then I ship it off. But what I sell now, I still will sell anything that I can get my hands on. But what I've done over the last couple of years that really have kind of elevated my business to the next level, to where my profit margins are beginning a lot higher, is I'm doing a lot of like buyouts and wholesale deals. And the way that I find those, a lot of people are like, well, how do you find larger, lots of things to buy? And the best recommendation I would say is like going to auctions. And the big one for me has been Craigslist, OfferUp, and Facebook Marketplace. It's not easy to find that stuff, but if you are diligent and really steadfast and taking the time out of your day, maybe an hour or so each night to kind of look through your local classifieds, eventually you'll find somebody selling off, Grandpa's collection that, passed away, and he's got, thousands of comic books. Or maybe you'll find an eBay seller that no longer wants to sell on eBay and they're selling off their old inventory. Or maybe, a mechanic that, was local in your neighborhood that, worked for 30 years. Now they're retiring and they want to get rid of everything. So that's kind of what I've done over the last couple of years is, I'll look for big bulk buys like that. And then, from then I'll just try to negotiate a deal to where, it makes sense for me financially to invest in that, to where I know that, I'm going to make money on the back end. And that's really what gotten my store to the next level, is buying larger stuff, because then I'm spending less time sourcing, out, at thrift stores, garage sales, estate sales, and I can focus more on just cranking up listings on eBay, because that's really what gets your numbers higher.
Yeah, I mean, but we're only getting paid on commission, so it's like when you're out running around, driving around the city and spending gas money looking for inventory, you're not really making money looking for merchandise. You're just out on a treasure hunt. So I was just going to add to that, if you guys get a chance, you can check out High Bid. That's a website you can go to and you can bid on it. And what they'll do is they'll have these wholesale liquidation companies, and they'll buy a big pallet of merchandise. And instead of selling a whole pallet, maybe they'll subdivide it into 4 or 5 different sub lots, and you can bid on lots of merchandise and get 400 or 500 items instead of spending $500, $600, $700 on a big pallet of merchandise. You can get wholesale lots. And also, I've been looking online on eBay, and you can buy online arbitrage, and you can buy big wholesale lots. So I've been looking online. Let's say I buy 1,000 CDs, for example, for $400. So my buy cost is 40 cents a piece. Now I can turn around and take those CDs that are new in the shrink wrap. I don't have to do any cleaning, any testing, anything like that, and turn around and sell them for 10, 12, 15, 20, $30 a piece. And your buy cost is 40 cents a piece. So if you look around, what Justin's saying is buy big wholesale lots of merchandise and then chop it up, sell them off individually, and then it cuts out a lot of your sourcing time as opposed to hunting for merchandise. But also in the past week, guys, if you just go out and look, there's literally merchandise everywhere. I mean, this past week, I picked up DVDs in the pawn shop for 50 cents a piece. I went to a thrift store. I picked up video games for Nintendo Wii video games for 50 cents. I went to Walmart clearance section. They had video games that were PS4 video games that were marked down from, $20 down to $2. It's just, if you just look around, whether you go into a thrift store, yard sales, pawn shops, estate sales, retail arbitrage, the Dollar Tree, I can go there and pick up Blu-rays for $1 and turn around and sell them for $20 on eBay all day long. So you just got to kind of have your head on a swivel and just go to different places. The one thing that's frustrating to me is that when you're at some of these places, like if I go to a thrift store or I go to a pawn shop, and let's say you clean them out and you get all the merchandise they have, you have to wait for that inventory to restock. It doesn't happen overnight, So you got to kind of have to travel a little bit out of your neck of the woods, out of your area to find inventory. But anyways, let me say hello to a few people here in the chat. I don't want to neglect the people in the chat. I wanted to say hey to Pam is here in the chat. Stephen G says, hey, the $99,000 question is, where are you sourcing? We just kind of talked about that. And C says, if I may ask a question. Yeah, if you have a question, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Helena says, I'm selling pictures of my feet online. I made $1,000 last month. Should I quit my job? I don't know if you're joking or not, but if you're only making $1,000 a month, I wouldn't quit your job only making $1,000 a month. You still have to put gas in your gas tank. You still have to, feed yourself. You still have to pay the rent, the light bill, car insurance. I wouldn't quit your job just because you made an extra $1,000 a month. What I would look at doing is try to generate multiple different streams of income and expand your income. $1,000 a month, that's $250 a week. That's not enough to really live off of. That's like, working a minimum wage job. At least here in Florida, they voted to raise minimum wage to $15 an hour. So, I mean, I wouldn't just quit your job because you made an extra $1,000 a month. I only give a shout out to Cherry Picker Flipper. It says, hey, Jeff, I saw you on Liquidation Motivation yesterday. Very informative. Hey, thank you. Yeah, occasionally I get asked to be a guest on other people's channels. So I was a guest on Liquidation Motivation channel yesterday. So if you guys didn't get a chance, you could catch the replay on that. I appreciate it. So, Justin, I wanted to kind of circle back around a little bit and kind of pick your brain as far as reselling goes, because I'm at 6,500 items myself on my eBay store, and I'm trying to grow and scale to 10,000. And it's not something that happens overnight, because as you're listing items, the old items you have in stock are selling through. So it's hard to grow and scale your business. So if somebody is in your shoes, or because when I talk to an average person and say, hey, I want to have 10,000 or 20,000 items in my eBay store, they kind of look at you like you're a space alien or something. Like, this guy is crazy. So what advice would you have to help somebody grow and scale their eBay business so they can get to the point where they're ready to quit their full-time job and become a full-time reseller? Like, what advice would you have? What would be like maybe 3 pieces of advice to help them grow and scale their business?
Sure. Those were great statements that you made, and great questions as well. You're right. It definitely does take time to grow your store to any type of scale like that. And when I say those numbers, you're right. Sometimes people look at me, with deer in the headlights, like, how is that even possible? And my first piece of advice would be, be patient, and it really does take time. My store, the only reason why it's that big is because it's a culmination of a decade of putting things up on eBay. I think I may have said this earlier, but I list good till canceled, buy it now, So, and my motto, and I'm sure you've heard other resellers say it in the past, not all people, agree with this philosophy with selling on eBay, but it works for me. And that's list it and forget it. Meaning that once you put something up on eBay, good till canceled, I leave it there and I don't mess with it. Sometimes I'll run sales, sometimes I'll run promotions, sometimes I'll try to clear stuff out. But by and large, I'm not real worried about it, because if somebody, wants that item and it's overpriced or it's been sitting for a while, just like I'm sure you're aware of, people over time will contact you on eBay and be like, hey, can you do any better on this price? And then you can send them an offer then. So my philosophy is just put stuff up and let the market determine what happens with it. Now, obviously, I'm pricing stuff reasonably. I'm trying to be competitive with market values when I list it. But over time, that might change, and that's when I'll take different offers and whatnot. Another thing that has been huge, but kind of like what you hit upon, is once you're listing stuff obviously is selling as well, right? You don't want to just put a bunch of stuff up. You don't want 15,000 items that are active but nothing's selling. So you do want to try to find that good balance to where your numbers and your profit margins are where you want them to be. The biggest thing is, since I've quit my job now, I've been able to stay at home and list all day, and that's really helped my numbers go up. And like you kind of hit upon earlier, when my wife quit her job, both of two people working on it full time, you can get your numbers a lot higher. But for the longest time, when I was only doing it for my side job after I got home from teaching, my store hovered in probably the 5,000-6,000 items range, kind of where you're at now. So that's nothing small. That's nothing to kind of lower your head at. That's a huge accomplishment. And if you're, I know many people that have stores that size that are selling more than I am, that are making more money than I am. So just because I have a lot of items in my store doesn't mean that, all of those items are selling. But I've just found a system that kind of works for me. I think I may have hit two things. I'm trying to think of a third piece of advice. I guess my third piece of advice would be, when you're trying to bulk up your inventory, is look for things that you're familiar with. And that seems so cliche and so obvious. But if you're really knowledgeable in a certain category or content area, go to what you're good at. And then also, with that in mind, it's great to niche down, but also always be open to new opportunities and new possibilities. The best way that I've gotten to grow as a reseller is by taking, I don't want to say chances, calculated risk on stuff that I think might do well, but maybe I'm not familiar with because I've never sold it before. Some of my greatest, flips and some of my greatest returns on investment have been things that I learned as I went. The great thing about eBay, I think I said this earlier, is you can look at comps, you can look at prior solds, and you can look at active listings. So a lot of the guesswork is already done for you. But just always work on growing as a seller, and it pays off if you stick with it.
Okay, cool. Let's answer a few questions from the chat. Cherry Picker Flipper says, how many items do you sell a day? I find some people sell more items as they list more. I'm not sure if the algorithm kicks in or based on your seller status. Yeah, I noticed that as well. It's like I'll be sitting in my room and I'll be cranking out listings. And as you're listing items, you'll hear ka-ching, ka-ching, and stuff just starts selling through as you're listing items. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's like if your store is active, and I think it kind of, the algorithm picks up on that. But the question was, how many items do you sell a day out of 15,000? I mean, it varies from day to day, but what would you say in an average day, how many you sell?
It might seem shocking or surprising, but on an average day of 15,000 items, I'm selling probably 20 to 30 items. So, a lot of people think, you got 15,000 items up, you must be selling 100, 200 a day. And I'm not. I know people that do. But my average sale price, across the board is right around $25. I think I haven't checked it in a while. But when I do, it fluctuates around there. So, I'm not selling home run items all day long, things for, $200, $300, $400, $500. Really where you make a living on eBay is with the bread and butter stuff, the stuff that you were talking about earlier, the CDs that you find, the things that are easily findable. Really, my best advice is just finding that stuff and just trying to find a way to get better at your processes. How can I get better at listing? How can I get better at shipping? And what can I do to, what shortcuts can I take without it affecting my customer service and my presentation as a seller, to where, I'm not spending as much time sourcing anymore. Like we were talking about earlier, I used to, when I started, I would go and spend all day going to thrift stores and going to, estate sales and things like that. and I come home with a trunkload of stuff. But it really consumed a lot of time, right? But now, if you're finding, larger lots of stuff, you got the one deal, and there have been times where I've, purchased stuff in the last year, where I'll eat on that. When I say eat on it, I mean, I'll list that stuff for months, for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. So literally where I'm at now, kind of in my business, one deal can literally make or break your entire year. So my recommendation would be, I didn't mean to go too far off tangent. But my average sale price, like I said, is about $25 dollars ish a day. And, I'm averaging right now anywhere from, $300 to $500 in sales a day. It wasn't always that way, but, the more you put up, the more it puts out. And that's really the game with eBay.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Justin's philosophy of, the more items you get listed, the more opportunities you have a chance of selling. It's like the more fishing lines you put in the water, the more fish you're going to catch. I mean, it's just a simple thing. Yeah. So we have a question here from Tim. Says, hey, Justin, trying to grow my store as well, trying to research and list one-off items. What is your best strategy? My death pile is about 2K items. Only have 160 active listings.
That's a great question. And that's something that, is easy, kind of a trap that I used to fall into. I can't speak for you, but it sounds like, when I first started selling on eBay, I would have a pile of stuff and I would really get lost in the researching aspect of it. And for good reason, right? When I started off, I wasn't really knowledgeable in a lot. And I'm also, kind of like a history buff, and I really love just things and collecting things. But that can get dangerous if, you're trying to resell too, because then you turn into a hoarder real quick. And it took me a little while to learn, the balance between, oh, this item is so cool, I want to sit here and look at it, and I want to open up Google and learn all of the history about it and this and that, to where I am now, where, I pick up something and I'm completely emotionally detached from it. I literally look at it as, a widget in a line of, a conveyor belt of, I got to get this listed, I've got to get it stored, and then when it sells, I got to ship it. Those are the 3 steps. And it's easy to get caught up on all 3 of those steps on eBay. If you spend too much time, listing, then you're not going to be spending as much time shipping. If your inventory system's bad, if you're not very good at managing your items, then that's going to be unorganized, and that's going to affect another area of your business. I sold for probably 4 or 5 years before I even knew what a SKU was. And as crazy as that sounds, I can't think now that I wouldn't know what that is. But if you don't know what it is, it's called a system keeping unit. And it's basically a code system, kind of like a barcode system when you go to the store, of how you can keep inventory. And when I came up with a good system to store that stuff, it revolutionized how I sold, because now I figured out how I can store more stuff. When I first started, I did what a lot of people do, is I just throw stuff in a closet. I knew where it was. And when it sold, it was easy to look through 100 to 200 items. Whereas where I am now with 15,000 things up, if I don't have an organization to that, if something sells, I'm never going to find it. Like if you go to my store, probably, I think I've got around 3,000 postcard active listings, and they're not selling for crazy money. If a postcard sells, it's going to sell for $5 to $10. But if I sell a postcard and I didn't have that cataloged, I'm never going to find that in a stack of 3,000 postcards. Or if I do, it's going to take me an hour to find it. And that's just not real manageable. So, the best thing I would recommend to trying to get more efficient with your time is try to be really self-critical and not to be too hard on yourself, but at the same time think of, what am I doing that I could be doing better, and then try to grow from that. Do what I did and do what I know a lot of great resellers do. Watch YouTube, look at what people that are selling better than you are or higher than you are, what you want to attain to be, and try to copy and mimic what they're doing. And eventually over time, you'll become that person. And when I started selling on eBay 10 years ago, the only people out there that I could find that were resellers that I knew their names were Ryan and Jay. They had a podcast called Scavenger Life. And there was no YouTube. There was maybe there were eBay forums, but those were like the complaining areas of eBay. And I found them, and literally I would just throw it on that podcast in the background while I was working, listing and shipping. And I would listen to them for an hour. And they were full-time resellers, kind of like I am now. And they would just talk about their daily life and how they handle their business. And I grew from that. And if it weren't for them, I would never be where I am now. So I would highly recommend, Jeff's channel is an incredible resource because you can kind of find every reseller you would ever want to know just by browsing through his channel. He interviews all of them. So I would start right here on eBay Addicts.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I have over 400 videos posted right now. But yeah, I can't speak to what Justin does. But Tim, what I would tell you is you need to have some type of schedule or routine, because what I find the biggest issue for resellers is like maybe they're trying to list in the middle of the day and maybe they have stuff going on. They have to go do the laundry. They have to go cook dinner. They have to go to their kids' baseball game. So you need to find a time or a schedule in your routine where you can sit down and crank out listings, so that's very important. Me personally, I'm a night person. So I can go in my room at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, shut the door, put on YouTube or a podcast or put some tunes on, kind of get into my zone and start cranking out listings. But what I do is I sell a lot of items like this that are small items like this. And then I'll find right here, you see what he was talking about with the SKU system, scan that barcode. And when you scan that barcode, it's going to show you all the like items that are like that already listed on eBay. And a lot of times I'll take somebody else's listing, go to the bottom, hit sell similar. And then all I'm doing is taking a photo front and back of that item, listing it. And I can literally crank out a listing in less than 2 minutes. I mean, it doesn't take very long. And another little trick I'll tell you is if you can do multi-quantity listings. I have this one DVD. I just shipped one out today. And I have this DVD in stock, and I have 600 of this one DVD in stock. And I didn't pay but a quarter for it. And it sells on eBay for $20, right? So every week I sell about 4 to 5 copies of this DVD every single week. And whenever it sells, it's very easy. I mean, I just grab it, drop it in a little 6x9 padded envelope, put a little shipping label on it, drop it in the mailbox. So, I mean, you factor in a multi-quantity listing. This is kind of a little cheat code, I'll tell you guys, that I learned from years of experience, is that now how long would it take me realistically to sit here and list 600 individual SKUs? Long time. Well, what if I listed that SKU one time, typed in quantity of 600, and have that same item sell over and over and over again? And even though it's only a $20 item, you can do the math. What's $20 times 600? That's $12,000 on that one listing. And you only paid a quarter for it. So what's a quarter times 600? I only paid a couple $100 for the merchandise. You're turning what, $200 and $12,000 worth of merchandise in 5 minutes. So if you can find little cheat codes, like we're trying to help you read between the lines here. If you can find something like that where you can do multi-quantity listings, you can list an item one time and then have that item sell through over and over and over again. That's kind of a cheat code. Instead of you having to list 600 individual SKUs and then try to run around the house looking for them when they sell. So just trying to help you guys level up your business. But if you have 160 active items and only 2,000 of them, you have 2,000 of them sitting in your death pile, you're just going to have to sit down and get motivated. Another little trick that I do is every time I list an item is I have this little trick in my head. Well, let's just say hypothetically, this is a $20 item, $25 item. So every time I list this item on eBay, in my head, I think, okay, boom, I listed this item and I've just basically wrote myself a $25 check. Okay. Think about if you go to the bank and you deposit a $25 check at the bank. Okay. Now, and sometimes the bank will say, okay, it's going to take 7 days, 30 days for that check to clear the bank. So you've deposited your check in the bank and you're waiting 6, 7, 10 days or whatever. And then boop, all of a sudden your check's cleared the bank and you hear ka-ching and that item's sold. And that's basically a way that your check has cleared the bank. So that's another little trick that I do is when I'm listing items, I'm saying, okay, boom, just deposited a $20 check. Just deposited a $30 check into my eBay bank account. So, and also try to find like items. If I can get a stack of, let's say 10, 15, 20 like items, you can crank them out a lot faster instead of just listing random items throughout your house. But you're just going to have to be motivated. You're going to have to come up with a time or a schedule when it's convenient for you to list. And then you're just going to have to put the work in and do it. I mean, I'm trying to help you guys out with showing you ways you can do, like, scan barcodes, do sell similar. You're just going to have to start cranking out some listings and find time to do it. Justin did it while working a full-time job. And he said earlier, he had days where he just was exhausted and would just pass out, So you're going to have days like that. That's part of it. I mean, it's, Rome wasn't built in a day. But you guys can do this. I've got 6,500 items listed. Justin here has got 15,000 items listed. I mean, he didn't have some rich uncle that passed away that left him any money or anything. He didn't win the lottery. He's just been putting the work in. So I just want to encourage you guys that if you're struggling, that you guys can do this. He was able to pay off his house, $300,000 house. He retired him and his wife early to be full-time resellers. If you guys are hustling and you're willing to put the work in, you can do what Justin's done. He's giving you guys a blueprint here. Sometimes I get on a rant. I'm sorry. I want to give a shout out to the Rampage reseller is here, and he says time for binge watching and listening while working. So anyways, then I want to give a shout out to the Philly Picker is here. What's up? I wanted to say hey to the Philly Picker. So Justin, man, we've been on the live stream for 45 minutes. I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on and hang out with us. Tell everybody in the audience where they can go by and check you out at on YouTube and Instagram so they go by and follow you.
Sure. Before I do, though, I want to say thank you, Jeff, so much. This has been a blast. I've really had a lot of fun doing this with you. It's made my entire week. But you can find me on YouTube on under Coach Commerce. I go by Coach Commerce. I think I have even after my name. And same with Instagram. I go by Coach Commerce on Instagram too. If you reach out to me on Instagram and I don't get to you right away, I apologize. I am more active on YouTube these days. But I think even when Jeff reached out to me, it may have taken me a day or two to get back to him. I'm going to promise I'll try to get better at checking my Instagram more often. But you can find me at Coach Commerce on both those platforms.
Yeah, guys, go ahead and follow him. We're trying to get Justin to 1,000 subscribers. So if you guys go ahead and follow him, I think between now and the Christmas, you'll get there. You'll reach your goal and hit 1,000 subscribers. So tell people what kind of content you make on your channel so they come by and check you out. They know what to expect.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. If you come by my channel, everything that you're going to find is going to be all about how to become better at selling on eBay. I don't really do anything with Amazon. So if you're an Amazon seller, my channel probably wouldn't cater towards you. But like we've talked about this entire conversation, I make a full-time living on eBay, and the content I put on YouTube involves, tutorials like help and how-to videos with eBay. And I also kind of am playing around a little bit with like vlogging in terms of, how I source and how I find things, at all of the different avenues that I talked about earlier. So my channel is kind of a mix between those two. So there's something there for, any eBay reseller. And I hope that if you check out my channel that you enjoy it. Drop a comment if you stop by my channel, and I always do my best to try to reply to everybody that reaches out to me.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we'll try to have you guys back on again sometime soon. So Justin, you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom you can leave our audience with?
If I could summarize everything that we've kind of discussed in this last 50 minutes or so, that's just to find what you love on eBay and reselling. And if you do that, it's never going to feel like work. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if you're patient, if you put in the work and you're diligent, and over time, it'll grow to what I believe more than you ever even thought was physically possible. That's the awesome thing about eBay is there's so much opportunity out there. If you're willing to put the work in, it's definitely well worth it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I just want to give a shout out here real quick to Tim in the chat. Happy APV, Rampage reseller. He says, listing while you guys are working, listing 3 sheds of death piles. Yeah, this is going to be our guest coming up later this week, Rampage reseller. So you guys want to come back and hang out with me later. And anybody else in the chat I missed, thank you guys for coming on and hanging out with us. And go ahead and follow our guests. All the links are going to be down below. YouTube, Instagram. We're going to try to get Justin to 1,000 subscribers. So go ahead and follow our guests. I want to give a quick shout out to the Selling Sniper. Thanks for coming by and hanging out with us, guys. We appreciate you. And we'll see you guys in the next video. You guys have a great day. Until then, go follow our guests. All the links are down below. Justin, Coach Commerce, go follow him. See you guys. Have a great day, guys. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.